Do you know what to say when you're hanging out with friends socially? What does hanging out mean? Learn how to chat with your friends in English in this episode of
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello and welcome. If you're a new listener, welcome to the podcast. My name's Craig.
My name's Reza.
And if you've listened to us before, welcome back. We've been teaching for many, many years, Reza and I, and together we're going to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. Reza, have we got any feedback this week?
We've got a voice message from someone who calls themselves Crush the Turtle.
Crush the Turtle, Tortuga.
Crush the Turtle from Argentina.
Okay, let's listen to Crush the Turtle.
Hi Craig, hi Reza. This is Crush the Turtle from the Earth, most precisely from Argentina. First of all, thanks for your great work. You're amazing, blah blah blah, and all that stuff you already know. Instead of that, I thought of give you something else, kind of a present. Sorry guys, but it is not 20 kilos of dulce de leche or something like that. However, because I love mystery, I'll speak about that gift in another message. Anyway, for now I have an idea for a future podcast. Maybe you could talk about books, some vocabulary related to books and reading, and maybe some recommendations from you, stories, novels, tales that you have read. Nothing else at the moment. And congratulations, you have another happy listener here in this beautiful world. Cheers! And now I have to pause this. Where is it? Where? Here. Yeah.
I went to Argentina, I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago. I was lucky enough to travel in Argentina. And one thing I really enjoyed about meeting people there was their sense of humor. The Argentinians do have a wonderful sense of humor, as we saw here with Crush the Turtle. Any comments, Reza?
Yes, that was a very funny message, Crush the Turtle. Thanks very much. And you're quite right that if we want dulce de leche, we should go to Argentina and find it for ourselves. And we're looking forward to the real present that you'll be sending us soon. You're being very mysterious. I wonder what it could be.
We'll have to wait and see. There's one thing I did notice about your message, and that's a slight error when you said, I thought of give you. Remember, after prepositions, it's always a gerund. So I thought of giving you a surprise or a present. And we have already spoken about books and reading, and you may be interested in listening to this episode, Crush. And it was back in episode 177. So it's not easy to find because it was the episode in which we spoke about writing an email to technical support. So that's back in 177. Go to inglespodcast.com/177. We speak about books and reading at the beginning of that episode, and Reza and I give recommendations of books that will be a good idea for you to read in English. If you have any particular questions or comments on that, Crush the Turtle, then we'd be more than happy for you to send us another message. And we did say we'd do a poetry episode, didn't we? We haven't done that yet. Is that something you'd like to do, Reza?
Very soon, after the new moon, we shall do, just for you, some poetry.
Oh, that's why it's lovely. That's such spontaneous poetry.
Wow, spontaneous. Wow, that was genuine poetry. No, it wasn't. It was not the greatest poem in the world. But you know what? What about in preparation for our poetry episode? If you have any poems you want to send us in English, that's the condition. Got to be in English. Any poems or little verses in English, please send them along to us.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. And we will be speaking about poetry very, very soon on a podcast.
Craig, we have another voice message, a bit closer to home this time. It's from a regular listener, Maite from Shativa. Hello, Maite, and all the soccer rats. Shall we listen to our message?
Yes, here's Maite.
Hello, Greg and Reza. This is Maite from Shativa. It's been a long time since I sent you my last suggestion. So now it's about time for me to put forth a new subject, isn't it? It couldn't be bad if you post the hanging out or meeting up vocabulary. You know, having a talk with friends, colleagues, mates about informal issues like, for example, how to plan a powwow, where to go, what to do, and so on. As always, I listen to your podcast every day as a good alcoholic. For the time being, that's a wrap. I can't help to copy Mamen's expression. A big kiss and a big hug, guys. Bye.
And a big hug to you in Chativa, Maite. Thanks for sending your message. What is a powwow, Reza? Maite spoke about having a powwow, and I don't know if that's a new meme or new thing on the internet.
Well, I don't know if it is or not. We had to look this up, Maite. I must admit I was not familiar with that expression. It might be because it's typical to North America, but not Europe. The information we got was that a powwow is a social gathering held by many different Native American or Native American Indians, some people call them. And it's a specific type of event for people to meet and dance and sing and socialize. Kind of like a party, una fiesta for the North American Indians, the indigenous people, and it honors their cultures.
Yeah, and these can last for 2 or 3 days. Maybe it's a full day or maybe up to 3 days of partying and singing and socializing. So that's a powwow.
I wonder, do they smoke the peace pipe? Isn't that a thing that they also do in the Native Indian communities? You have to smoke from a pipe and pass it to the person beside you as a sign of friendship.
That's the image I have of a powwow from the old Western vaqueros, when they're sitting around the campfire and the cowboys and the Indians get together to smoke a peace pipe. But I'm sure today it's completely different.
Yeah. And in those old films, the cowboy and Indian films, it's obligatory to speak like this if you're Indian. You have to speak like this. White man come with fire stick. He shoot many, bang, bang, like that. And I've seen it dubbed in Spanish, and it's similar. The way you do it in Spanish is to put everything in the infinitive, don't you? Say, venir hombre blanco, traer mucho palo, pow, pow. They speak in the infinitive. That's how you do the Native American Indian.
Those old films, the westerns that they play on Spanish TV in the afternoon, like during the siesta. Yeah. So Maite asked us about vocabulary connected to hanging out with friends. What's hanging out? The phrasal verb to hang out. What does that mean?
Well, hanging out is an expression that we are very familiar with. Powwow might be popular again these days, we don't know, but hanging out has been popular for a long time. That's it means to be with people. I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm informally, casually with my friends. Maybe we're not doing anything in particular. We're just together.
Pasar el rato, perhaps.
Pasar el rato con mis amigos. Hang out with my friends.
So how could you do this to improve your English? Well, there are, depending which city or which town you live in, there are clubs, language exchanges, tandems, they're sometimes called, a group of people who meet maybe once a week or twice a week to practice English or to practice Spanish. Sometimes you have a language exchange. So you'd speak for half an hour in English, then you'd speak for half an hour in Spanish with an English speaker. So both of you are experiencing native English conversation to improve your fluency. That's a fantastic idea. And
I've done that. Have you ever done a language exchange?
I have here in Valencia. Yeah, there were a couple of pubs in Valencia. They still have them in several places, and they're really, really good. In fact, one particular pub actually spoke to you when you first came in the door, very quickly, very briefly, to discover more or less your level. So if you sounded like a lower level student, you would be in a lower level group on a particular table. If your English was more advanced, you'd be grouped with more advanced speaking students. So it was very good in putting you with people of your abilities in English. So look in your particular area, and there's a website that's very useful for this called meetup.com, MEETUP, meetup.com. You have to be proactive, so you'd search on that page, you'd find a group, you'd go to the place and meet people. So you have to make an effort, hacer un esfuerzo, to go out and do this, to practice.
Can I just say, you've reminded me, Craig, I'd completely forgotten. I'm already on Meetup. I keep forgetting it. I'm in the Belfast Spanish Meetup group. I keep forgetting about it. And every once in a while I get a message from saying, hey, you're coming to our meeting on Wednesday in the Crown Bar in Belfast. Like, oh, right, I forgot about that.
So is that a group of people in Belfast who come together to speak Spanish?
Yes. Some of them are Spanish and some of the Spanish speakers, and some of them are non-Spanish speakers.
And do the Spanish speakers expect to practice their English, or
Yes.
they're there to speak Spanish?
It's basically a language exchange. So a bit of Spanish, a bit of English.
Ah.
But the common denominator is an interest in Spanish language or Spanish-speaking countries.
And how many people tend to go usually to these meetups?
Well, I've only been to a few, but about a dozen, about 12.
That's quite good. That's very good.
We meet in a pub, and of course, for me, my interest is to speak Spanish. Particularly when I was living in Belfast a few years ago, I wanted to practice Spanish. But I guess the Spanish speaker's interest is more to speak English. So you kind of say, okay, I tell you what, can we speak Spanish for 20 minutes now, and then after that, English for 20 minutes? And that's the way it works.
Yeah,
Have a
50-50.
drink, and if you need to, you translate a word, and if you don't know it, you ask somebody else around the table. Mm-hmm. It's really nice.
Yeah, so that's one website you could go to, meetup.com. But of course, there may not be groups meeting in your area. What can you do? Well, an alternative is to speak to your friends, your work colleagues, perhaps, people in your office, people who are interested in improving their English, and just arrange with them one night or 2 nights a week to meet after work for an hour and only speak English. So you can organize your own small group in your university or in your company or with friends that you have in your area or your own family, and just meet to practice English. But of course, if you do that, you need to know some social English to chat and to speak in English. So let's look at some language that you can use just to hang out with people and have informal conversations. Reza, do you have any idea of what phrasal verbs will be useful in this situation?
Yes, on the whole, using phrasal verbs is a good idea to hang out together, because phrasal verbs are very often informal. Mm-hmm. And when you hang out with your friends, when you hang out together, you're usually being informal. So phrasal verbs will be very appropriate. You can get together. In other words, meet and be together. You can get together with your friends and hang out. There's 2 phrasal verbs for you, hang out and get together.
And you can say to your colleague, let's get together and speak English after work on Friday. Let's get together. Let's come together and have a small informal meeting to be together with friends. Or you could go out. There's another phrasal verb, to go out and socialize with your friends to speak English. So to go out to a bar, go out to a restaurant, have some tapas and speak English.
Craig mentioned the website Meetup because it comes from the phrasal verb meet up. That's why it's called that. To meet up is to get together, to come together. You can just say to meet without the preposition, but it's more typical with informal English to add up. Let's meet up. Let's get together.
I'd say to you, perhaps, let's meet up for dinner on Friday. Let's get together and have a meal. Of course, it's not necessary to go out to speak English. You could go to someone's house. Or if you wanted someone to come to your house, you could use the phrasal verb to drop by. Drop is caer, D-R-O-P, but drop by means to informally visit someone. So I could say, hey, Reza, drop by for a coffee tomorrow afternoon after work, or drop by after university and we'll practice English. There are similar expressions that mean the same thing. You could say pop by, P-O-P, just pop by. Pop means come quickly or informally. So I could pop by or pop round to your house or your flat to have a coffee or a beer and speak English. Also, call by, C-A-L-L. I'll call by on Friday means I'll come to your house for a chat on Friday. It means to visit.
Another variation is to say to call on someone. I could say to you, I'll call by on Friday. Or I could say, I'll call on you on Friday. You call on a person. I'll call on you someday soon. I'll drop by. I'll pop by. And you could maybe chill out together. To chill out, to relax, to take it easy.
Hey, chill, man. Tranqui. Did I say tranqui?
Tranqui, yeah. Right.
Hey, tranqui, chill. Don't stress. Just chill out, man. Just chill out. Take it easy. So let's look at some greetings, because obviously when you meet someone, you want to begin the conversation, you want to greet them or say hello. So one informal way of greeting someone is just to say hi. How's it going? How's it? That's how is it going? Be careful of the pronunciation. It's an expression that's very difficult to get to hear when you hear it, because native speakers say it very quickly. And I try this with my students sometimes. I say, hey, how's it going? They go, ¿qué? They don't understand that expression. How's it going?
And it's probably because there's elision in that. I think we mentioned this before, but I can't remember in what episode. We'll come back to it in the future. How's is how is, but with contraction. And then it begins with a vowel, and it's very typical in English. Whenever the second word begins with a vowel sound and the first word ends with a consonant sound, so the first word ends z and the second word begins e, to join up the sounds as if it was one word. So instead of saying how's it, we say how's it. So how's is already a contraction of how is. And when you join that to it, that's actually three words which sound like one, which is what makes it really difficult. How's it going? And Spanish people think, what's this how's it? Is he talking about a house, una casa? No, it's how is it? How's it?
In fact, in Australian English, they even sometimes omit or leave out the going. So you might hear from an Australian person, how's it, mate? Which means how is it going? How's it? How would you answer that if you can recognize, identify that expression? Well, you could say, yeah, it's pretty good, or not bad, no está mal, and then return the question, how about you? Or how are you? Okay, so if I said, for example, how's it going, Reza?
I'd say, I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, can't complain, not bad.
As Craig said, in Australia, they have their own variety, and there are many varieties all over the world. But it's useful to learn this because it's fairly standard in all countries in the world where they know English. If you say, how's it going? You'll be understood. You'll be understood.
¿Cómo vas? ¿Cómo vas, tío?
Apart from the Australian version, there's a little variety that I like, but I bet Craig's heard it a lot more often than I have, because it's quite common in his neck of the wood when somebody says to you,
what's my neck of the woods?
Your neck of the woods, neck cuello, your neck of the woods means the area where you come from, the area that you know best.
Mi barrio.
So barrio. So
my hood. my neighborhood.
His hood, in
my
the hood. I'm sure Craig's heard a lot more than me in the hood, this expression, which I really love, because it's just so difficult if you're not a native speaker to know. It just sounds like a syllable, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's very London. That's very East London as well, and very Essex to say all right, which is all right.
I guess it's a shortened version of are you all right?
Yeah.
But it gets reduced to all right, but that doesn't get pronounced very well, so it comes out as kind of one syllable beginning with W, like what? Are you all right? What? It's great, isn't it? I love that.
That's a very good accent you've got there.
Of
a Londoner. Another expression that you may hear is simply what's happening. What's happening? What's going on? What's happening are very similar. So if I said to you, what's happening? You might say, oh, not much, Not much. I'm okay.
That's like a Spanish que pasa, isn't it?
Yeah. What's happening? What's going on?
How are you doing is a variation of how's it going. Means the
It's
same
also,
thing.
there's contractions in there, and that's also quite difficult to understand. Listen, how you doing? How you doing? A lot of weak forms in there. How you doing? And how would you answer that? Well, maybe with great, or how about you? I'm fine. How about you? Things are good. How you doing? Can't complain. There's another one. I can't complain. But we usually omit, or we don't say I, just, can't complain. How you doing? Can't complain.
Or not too bad. It's a common one as well.
Not too bad.
Particularly in British English, the British like to understate things. So instead of saying, oh, I feel great, I feel very well, it's much more typical to say, not too bad. You know, we don't like to get too excited about things.
Yeah. And one more. Let's do one more. So one more expression. What's going on is fairly common. You see someone you know, or you walk into an office, or you see your classmates and say, hi, what's going on? ¿Qué está pasando? ¿Qué pasa? What's going on? And you could answer that with, not much really. Or, yeah, everything's okay. What's going on? So how's it going? What's happening? How you doing? What's going on? All ways of greeting people. Can you think of any more?
Some people say, but I wouldn't myself. It's quite young and trendy, and I'm too old. Some people say,
Too old.
too old. Some people say, what's new? I don't myself, but some people do. Would you say that?
I wouldn't. Maybe. I'm probably more likely to say, what's up?
Me too.
What's up? Hey, what's up? What's new? Or if I wanted to personally ask someone what they've been doing recently, I might say, what have you been up to? Again, lots of weak forms in there. So we have, what have you been up to? So the expression up to is really doing. What have you been doing? And the pronunciation, what have becomes what of. The have becomes very, very weak, muy débil. Of, what of. You, or maybe ye, what have ye. Been becomes been, very short. Up to. So, what have you been up to? What have you been up to? Very difficult to capture each individual word. Reza, what have you been up to lately?
Oh, this and that. And you?
No, not much really.
Huh?
And another one, have you had a good week? Have you had a good week? Have you had a good weekend?
What about you? Have you had a good week so far?
It hasn't started very well, but things are getting better. What about you? Have you had a good week?
So far, so good. Can't complain.
Pleased to hear it. So you've greeted your friend, your buddy, your mate, your compañero. How do you continue? So you're making small talk, you're chatting, probably or possibly by making suggestions. So perhaps you're out socially in a restaurant, in a pub, or you've met somewhere in the street. How can you suggest things, Reza? What expressions could you use to make suggestions in English?
The verb fancy is very common in this situation. You could say, do you fancy going for a drink? Do you fancy chilling out in my house? Or what do you fancy doing?
Do you fancy something to eat? Maybe you're inside a pub. Do you fancy sitting outside? Could be a question. Do you fancy sitting at a table? ¿Te apetece?
Yeah, you fancy doing something. Be careful. If you fancy a person, that's quite different. Craig, what does that mean? If you say, oh, I fancy her, what does that mean?
That means you're attracted to someone physically. So you see an attractive person in the bar or on the next table and you say, hey, I really fancy that girl on the next table. She's really attractive. So to fancy can also mean to be attracted to if you're speaking about a person. But just to make a suggestion, do you fancy a pizza or do you fancy going for a drink?
Craig, what about fancy pantsy?
Never heard that before.
I don't know.
I've heard of fancy pants.
Ah, yeah, exactly. Fancy what's fancy pants?
Fancy pants, for example, if you've got a new mobile phone, a really expensive mobile phone, the latest model, the most expensive, and say, oh, that's a fancy pants mobile phone. It means the top of the range, very expensive, very flashy. Another word you could use for making suggestions is just let's, which is the contraction of let us. Let's, L-E-T-S. For example, hey, let's get a drink. Or this pub's too noisy. We can't speak in here. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go to a quieter place. Or let's go and have something to eat, to make a suggestion.
Always use the contraction if it's an informal situation, let's. Because if you say let us, it sounds very formal. Let us would only be used for formal situations, like in a church, let us pray.
Let us begin. Yeah.
It's very formal. Or let us, at a funeral, let us remember the life of poor Brian. It's all only used for formal situations. So let's, contraction, informal.
Or instead of let's, you could say, why don't we? Why don't we? Why don't we sit here? Why don't we order some food? Or why don't we meet at 6 o'clock?
Instead of why don't we, I guess you could say just why not? Why don't we meet at 6 o'clock? You can say why not meet at 6 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
Another one is, do you feel like? Now that word like is not the verb like, it's the preposition like. So it's followed by a noun or ing. Do you feel like going out for a drink? Do you feel like meeting at my house later? So if you have a verb, put it in the ing form with do you feel like.
And of course, if it's a noun, it's just a noun. So do you feel like a pizza? Do you feel like a drink? Do you feel like some tapas? Similar expression, what about? Or how about? Again, followed by the ing verb or a noun. For example, what about meeting again next week? Or how about ordering a snack or something? A snack is algo para picar. How about ordering something to eat? Or how about moving to the next table?
What about ordering something, Craig? How might we do that when we're with our friends?
When you want to order something, to order is pedir, you could use the expression, what are you having? So you have the menu and you ask somebody what they feel like ordering, what they fancy eating. So what are you having? Are you having a sandwich? Are you having some crisps? What are you having?
I think I'll have the sandwich, I could answer. I think I'll have. Or maybe I fancy a sandwich.
You could also use the expression I'm going for, which is fairly common. So you would look at the menu and say, I think I'm going for the toasted cheese sandwich, or I think I'm going for the ham sandwich, or I think I'm going for the steak and chips.
And if you're in a pub or a bar and you want to ask a person what they would like to drink, you can say informally, what's yours? In other words, what drink do you want? What's yours?
Mine's a pint of lager, or mine's a glass of wine. Let's look now at some conversation openers. So maybe you're in a situation where you don't know the people you're meeting with and you just want to start a conversation. Now, we've spoken about this before, so for some of you this will be revision, but just think of how you could tablar conversación, how you can open a conversation with someone who maybe you've never spoken to before. So you turn to the person sitting next to you or the person next to you at the bar. Reza, what could you say to that stranger?
Are you enjoying yourself? Or
yes,
maybe,
I'm having a great time.
yeah, or are you having a good time? Something like that.
And then I would return the question. So ask me again, Reza.
Are you having a good time?
Yes, I am, very much. Are you?
Oh, yes, thanks very much. It's my first time here.
Really? I've never been here before. Another question, have you been here before? Or do you come here often? Maybe it's a regular meetup. It's a regular language exchange every week, and it's your first time. So the obvious question, when you start to speak to somebody, have you been here before? Or is this your first time? Do you come here often? And then you start the conversation.
If the new person that you've met seems to know another person present, a third person, you could ask, how do you know, for example, how do you know Pete?
There's usually someone, isn't there, who knows everybody. There's usually someone at these meetups who knows everybody's name, who feels very comfortable with someone who's usually not in control, but like the center of the conversation. So you could turn to somebody next to you and just say, hey, how do you know Pepito? Or how do you know Jose? Or how do you know David? And that's a way to start a conversation. Another way to start a conversation is to compliment somebody on something they have or something they're wearing. That's a very easy way to start a conversation in a very positive manner. So, for example, you could say, hey, I really like your T-shirt. Where did you get it? I really like your necklace. I like your earrings. I like your mobile phone. Where did you get it? So you're paying a compliment to someone, starting a conversation in a positive way and being friendly.
When you pay a compliment to someone, Craig, do you have to give them money?
No, I know what you're thinking. To pay is pagar. So you pay for a meal or you pay for a beer. But that's not the same meaning. If you pay a compliment, it's like saying you give a compliment to someone.
And what's a compliment?
To say, like, your hair is very nice, I like your dress, I really like that necklace, that T-shirt is very funny, where did you get it? You're saying something positive about someone. That's to pay a compliment.
Do you think it's always acceptable to pay a compliment to someone that you've just met?
It depends on the compliment, I think. If you're not being too personal, then yes. I wouldn't say to someone I met something about their physique, for example.
Right.
But I would compliment their clothes, their jewelry. I would compliment any possession they have. I would definitely compliment somebody's English if they were not a native speaker. That's a very nice compliment to pay. But obviously, you have to be careful to get too personal. Remember, you're meeting people for the first time. But I think, hey, that shirt's really nice. Did you buy that in Valencia?
Yeah.
Is a neutral comment to make and a positive way to begin a conversation.
I take your point, but I'm a bit dubious.
What does that mean?
I have my doubts. Tengo dudas. Particularly if it's with the opposite sex. Well, no, that's not quite true. More specifically than that, if it's a man paying a compliment to a woman, doesn't matter so much if it's a woman paying a compliment to a man, but I wouldn't be too quick to say to a woman for the first time, hey, I really like your skirt. Where did you get it? I'm not sure that would be a great idea.
Well, I wouldn't ask them where they got it because I'm not a woman, so I wouldn't be looking to buy it.
Or would you just say, hey, that's a lovely skirt? Would you say that? I wouldn't be in a hurry to say that to a woman the first time.
I would say, I really like your dress. It's unusual. What's wrong with that?
For me, that's taking a big risk.
You think so?
Personally, I wouldn't do that with a woman the first time I met her. She might think, well, it's none of your business. You know, I would be a bit worried. I wouldn't have much trouble saying to another man, hey, I really like your trousers, or that's a cool shirt. But to a woman, I don't know. I'm a bit cautious about that.
Okay, well, we disagree on that. So what do you think? Do you think it's okay to compliment someone on their clothes, or is that too personal if they are complete strangers and you're meeting them for the first time? Let us know what you think. It'll be interesting to hear also if it's different in Spain than Argentina or Colombia or Mexico or other Central and South American countries around the world. Is it acceptable in a bar, in a social situation, to compliment someone on their clothes or their jewelry, for example? What about the question, did you have a good weekend or did you have a good week? That's okay, isn't it?
That's perfectly safe, I think. Yeah, that's safer ground. Yeah.
And maybe what did you get up to? To get up to means what did you do? What things did you do? Did you go out? Did you meet friends? So what did you get up to last weekend is a good opener.
Or how was your day is very common in America, the United States. Or how was your week?
Mm-hmm.
Craig, how was your day?
Today's been wonderful so far because we're podcasting and it's something I really look forward to. So I was a little tired when I woke up, but I had a good breakfast. I arranged a few things around my home office here in my flat and tied it up because you were coming here. And it's been a great day, but that might change because I'm teaching this afternoon. So depending on if my students have done their homework or not, the day might get better or it might get worse.
As I think we've mentioned before, we love talking about the weather to start a conversation. Craig, what do you think of this weather we've been having?
Sorry?
What do you think about this weather we've been having?
Oh, it's been terrible, hasn't it? It's been raining and it's been cold and it's been very, very grey and overcast, grey clouds. Yeah, it's very easy to speak about the weather, and it's a very neutral topic. So no problems, no danger of offending people.
I suppose you could take a bit more of a risk and talk about sport or news or current affairs with caution. You could say, what about a football team? What about Arsenal? What about Barca, Real? What about the strike, La Huelga? What about the disaster? What about the Prime Minister? What about the President?
So there's obviously a theme here. If you say what about and then something controversial or something that's in the news or something connected to a sports event, then immediately you should get a response from the person or people in the group. Say, hey, what about Real Madrid last week? And then immediately people should start speaking. So just that initial what about should create some conversation. Like, what about that disaster in China? Or what about what the Prime Minister said last week? Could start a conversation.
You could ask about things that the other person has seen recently. It could be a TV program or TV series. Could be a film in the cinema. Could be an exhibition. For example, hey, have you seen that new exhibition in the Tate Gallery? It's amazing. Or have you seen that new series on HBO? Wow, it's fantastic.
So that's just a way to try and find some common ground. How do you say common ground in Spanish?
Cosas en común, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah. If you can find common ground with the person you're speaking to, the conversation is much easier. So if you can identify something that the person has done or seen recently, immediately you should start talking about it easily. Have you seen the latest episode of The Walking Dead? Have you seen the latest film in the cinema? Have you seen this TV series? And then you can start speaking about what happens.
Or rather than what the person has done recently, you could ask them about their future plans. Not in the distant future, but something like, are you looking forward to the weekend? Or do you have any plans for next week or for the Easter break? Or something like that.
So notice we've been asking questions using different tenses. For example, how was your week or how was your day? We're speaking about the past. What do you think of the weather we've been having, present perfect continuous, from the past until now? Now, as Reza said, we're speaking about the future and asking what people's plans or arrangements are. What are you doing this weekend, for example? And the question is often in the present continuous because you're expecting the person to have plans or arrangements. So don't use will for that. Don't say, what will you do this weekend? Or what will you do next week? Use the present continuous for the future. So what are you doing next weekend? What are you doing after Friday, for example?
If you're at a party, it could be in somebody's house or it could be a restaurant or anywhere really. A good conversation opener is to ask about the food. So you could say something like, have you tried the sandwiches? They look really good. Or, I'm not sure I'd like that. Have you tried those? Or what's in that? Is that chicken? Or any comment really about food is a good way of starting a conversation.
Exactly. And very often it's the way you say something that helps the conversation, not what you say. So remember that intonation in English. So you look at somebody, you'd smile, you'd say hello, and hey, have you tried these sandwiches? Notice the intonation goes up high. Have you tried these sandwiches? They're really good. So that means you're being friendly to an English person. If you keep the tone, el tono, on the same level, you might sound bored or boring. So, have you tried these sandwiches? Is not very friendly, not very open, but have you tried these sandwiches? Is much more inviting of the conversation.
If you see that the person has a drink and perhaps they've just finished or they'll be finishing soon, you could say, fancy another drink? Would you like another drink? And that would be a good excuse then to keep your conversation going, because you'll go and buy them a drink and they'll probably want to talk to you for a while they're drinking.
Of course, alcohol equals conversation. So if you have another drink, probably it'll be easier to speak English. You could say fancy a swift half. What does that mean? A swift half.
That's very common in the UK. Swift means quick, fast, and half a pint. So a quick drink, not a big drink, just a little drink, a swift half.
Or a swift
Not too
pint.
much.
If you
Swift
drink
pint, yeah, if you do drink quick.
fancy a swift 5 pints. We hope that's helped you, mate, and we hope that's the kind of vocabulary and expressions that you were asking us for in your message. If not, then please let us know. And remember, we're getting very close now to episode 200, only 4 more episodes. So please send us any questions you would like us to answer about absolutely anything you like, except English. So no questions, please, on grammar, vocabulary and pronunciation. Anything else is fine. Send us your voice messages. You can do that on SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast, or by email to me, Craig, at inglespodcast.com.
Or Reza at belfastreza@gmail.com.
And before we head out the door, we'd like to say a quick thank you to our patrons on Patreon. Bruno, who is our gold sponsor on Patreon, who conducts walking tours of 2 very lovely and famous cities. First of all, Copenhagen, which can be found at copenhagenwalkingtour.com. You can go and see the shopping areas, the castles. There are many, many things to see and do in Copenhagen. I've been there. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. And his tours are in English or Spanish, but of course we suggest taking the English course. Also in Rio de Janeiro, the favela walking tour is led by local guides only, which means it's very safe. They know exactly where they're taking. And I would love to do that tour. So I will be definitely getting in touch with you, Bruno, when I one day hopefully visit Rio. And these tours put money back into the community to improve their daily life and their daily needs. The website for the Rio tour is favelawalkingtour.com/BR. Reza, who are our other wonderful sponsors?
Beatriz, Pedro, Maite, Rafa Bancells, Nestor Garcia Mañez at Luces Extrañas, that's nestorgm.com, Sara, Carlos, Mamen, Juan Leva, Corey Finneran at ivnv.com, Miren, José Luis, Agus, Mariel, Manuel García Betegón, Rafael, Manuel Tarazona, Juan Carlos, Pilar, Gambate Blog, Ana Giovanna, Igor, Ignacio Espona, Kieran, and our latest patrons, Carlos Garcia, Pache Ibanez, and Ana Ibarra. Thanks to all of you.
Yes, thank you very, very much. Why would you join this Patreon program? Well, if you want to support us, that's one reason, but also you get access to all our latest transcriptions for as little as $1 per month, which is about the price of a cup of coffee. And these transcriptions are transcribed by Angelica Bello from Madrid, and you receive them by email and through our Patreon page at patreon.com/Ingles podcast. So why not sign up and be part of our alcoholic Patreon program? Also, thank you to Patricia Alonso, who continues working hard to transcribe episodes for free for you. And on our website at inglespodcast.com, we have available episodes 1 to 17 and 131 to 142 that you can access for free. What's next, Reza? Next week?
Oh, sorry, what did you say?
I said, you're not paying attention, are you? Pay attention. What's next week?
Oh, yes, paying attention is next week's episode.
So paying attention, is that the same as paying a compliment, or is it something you pay with money?
No, it's also without money. It's prestar atención.
And thank you to Veronica Morfin for suggesting this topic. Please join us next week, where we'll be speaking about paying attention if Reza pays attention. Thanks for listening. Until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And bye-bye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.